Let's talk a little bit about occluded dots. So I just recently switched over to a brand new dot in the, oh boy, what is this thing called? Holosun 507 Comp. I am very, very, very comfortable and very, very used to a SIG Romeo 3 XL. I had to make sure I said everything the same there, or correct. I am also very, very used to a 6.0 MOA or a 5, depending on what brand you shoot. They're all pretty much exactly the same. They just number them differently. And now the Comp has a 2.0 or a 2.5, whatever it is. So it's a very, very different size dot that I have to get used to now. And now this is not it's not a negative or a positive. I personally just like the bigger dot, and the reason I like the bigger dot is I can see it sooner. At least that's what I'm used to. And I'll explain what I mean by that before we get into the occluded dot part, because I think this is a massive part of kind of the dot. And when I say I see the dot, I'm not staring at the dot. I am very, very target focused. I have been target focused from the very beginning. I think shooting the rifle helped that a lot. I used to, squint an eye and shoot with one eye, or just squint so one eye was kind of blurry and one eye was wide open when I learned to shoot iron sights. Because when I first started, there wasn't as much knowledge out there. I certainly wasn't very good. And there weren't people out there doing websites or internet like I am, or like Ben Stager and those guys. You would do books, but when I first started, I didn't know anybody. So as you're going through, you kind of learn these processes. And I learned quickly that your brain is a giant supercomputer, right? And in the last 2 years, I have really understood how vision works and how important vision is for everything. Movement. Most people only think about shooting when it comes to the vision, but movement is a giant thing. Your vision is a giant thing with movement. So imagine if you have a large screen TV and you cut it in half, right? So basically what you're doing is you're watching a movie and then all of a sudden you close one eye. Well, you can still see the entire TV. The problem is the left-hand side stuff isn't as much clarity. You're not getting as much information, and you're really losing a lot of what your brain is processing. That supercomputer's RAM just went down. So it's not processing everything as fast, and you're really, really making everything slower by doing that. So again, it's not that you can't use occluded dots all the time, but you're not supposed to, okay? The reason why occluded is very, very good is it's a training tool. And the crazy part is, and I see this a lot, there are things that people say in their training videos. The coaches are out there, they say a lot of these things, and they even tell you don't use this all the time. It's a training tool. And I'll have students come to my class, and immediately the first thing I ask them is, how long have you had that on there? I don't tell them to take it off. I don't tell them it's terrible, because it's not terrible. I have all these questions for them, but the main thing is how long have you had it on there? Oh, I've been running this thing for like 6 months. Oh, when was the last time you took it off? Oh, I haven't taken it off. I've just been running it occluded because I'm trying not to be dot focused. It's like, well, the whole point of it is to not be dot focused. So once you learn how not to be dot focused, you need to take the occlusion off, because it opens up a whole new world of information. You start bringing in all this information that your brain has shut off the entire time you've been shooting a match. So there's a reason why most top shooters don't run occluded dots all the time. Most top shooters will run occluded dots if they feel like they're struggling or sucking themselves back into that dot. So I made a post yesterday, a quick little story about I occluded my brand new dot that I'm trying out, a brand new dot that I've never used, that I've only had 1 or 2 sessions with. It's got a smaller dot, different window, which is actually the thing that bothers me the most about the dot, and I'll explain that in a minute. It's the main thing is because it's new to me and it's something that I'm not normally using, I wanted to double check to make sure that I am doing my job and staying target focused, because with it being a new dot, with it being a smaller size dot, I wanted to make sure that I didn't get sucked into staring at that little small dot and trying to find it. Now, I was indoors, no sun. The dot is very crisp so far from what I can tell. I really like the visual of the dot. I just don't like the size of the dot, which I had that conversation with Hollow Sun before, when they made it. So as we're having this as I'm going through this, I put my paster on the front, I pull the gun up, and I instantly go to target focus. I'm like, sweet. I didn't suck into the dot. Feels good. I didn't even try extra hard to like make sure I was target focused. I just looked at it like I normally do. I drew my gun, so it wasn't me just dry firing and me focusing. I actually drew my gun, did a couple of dry fire runs, made sure I was good. Hell, I even did a reload and came back to it to make sure that I was doing what I was supposed to do. I immediately took it off my optic, right? Had to wipe all the optic, all the goo off of it from the paster that I put on there. And I made a quick post and just said, hey guys, you know, look, this is a great training tool. Don't allow this to be a crutch. You know, I did my job. I took it off immediately. And it was surprising to me how many people messaged me. First of all, thank you for following my content. But it was surprising to me how many people didn't understand where the crutch or why it would become a crutch. I mean, I guess that's why I love my job, is because you get to educate so many people, and the internet does a lot of that for you, distance, so you can really reach out to people. But it's like you have to pay attention to these things that come out. I have heard Ben and Joel and everybody that's kind of in that PTSG group, or PSTG, sorry, group. I have listened to them 100 times talk about how the occluded dot is a tool and don't let it become a crutch. It's a tool, don't let it become a crutch. You should only use it to become non-target dot focused and da-da-da-da. And it seems like nobody, like they turn off the video before they get there. So you have to pay attention to what these things are. It's like doing a drill. If you have a drill, a specific type of drill, the goal is to work on that drill, but don't lock yourself in, right? If you're like, this is the drill to do this, then I'm just going to work on this. Yeah, but what happens when you have to transfer it to a stage? It's all got to work towards your main goal, right? It's a skill builder to use in an actual match. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. The occluded dot is there for you to learn to not stare at the dot. And once you stop staring at the dot, time to get rid of it, because now you can get all of your information coming back to you. Okay, so I want to finish on this about the dot, because I want to make sure I don't forget to talk about this. So what happens when I switch to the smaller dot, and the reason why I talk about the vision part is, imagine the big screen TV again. So my dot that I use has a massive window, but it's left to right, okay? From what I'm catching in the new dot is, and this happens in the SRO, in the comp, in a lot of these dots, is they're tall, all right? They're not wide, they're tall. So the thing for me, and the reason I've really like the Romeo 3 Max XL, it's just all these names right now, I'm just not working yet, is that I can see everything as I transition left to right. So for me, that's just become something that I'm used to. It's not something that I have to have. It's not, I don't even know if it's a major advantage, but I can see more. So the way I look at it through the dot is, if I can process or see where I need to go before I get there, and I can happen to see that through the dot, through the eye that I'm looking through the dot with, I'm going to be able to transition or move that gun a little bit faster, or be able to see things a little bit sooner. So now when I switched, I feel like everything kind of closed off from left to right, and it got taller. The other thing that I'm super sensitive to, and this is because I've been shooting the same dot for, I think I've been shooting the same dot for almost 3 years now. I have a lot of sensitivity to how thick the housings are on some of these optics. Like the SRO to me looks like a tube because the housing is so thick. The Romeo 3 XL has a super thin housing, but it's also spread out. So it doesn't have like these big thick chunks of optic or mounting for the glass around the outside of housing. That is something that I'm super sensitive to, because I feel like, because I am target focused, I see all that stuff getting in my way versus like clean, clear glass this way and open world out here on the left-hand side. So that's something that I notice a lot when I switch back and forth to dots. I picked up at the SHOT Show, I picked up a Seymour, the brand new RTS 3, I think it is, and the RTS 2, and I actually have some pictures of that I can share in a story. And the housing is what I noticed the most. Obviously, I was indoors, can't really see the glass, but the housing is what mattered the most to me, because it was so thin, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I don't have a lot of stuff in my way. It doesn't feel like I'm looking down a tube like it did with the SRO, and it had pretty much the same exact type of optic. The glass was bigger. It's just, it kind of was like, okay, this might be another option for me outside of the SIG. Even though I don't plan on switching that dot, other than they don't make an optic plate for it for the Walther yet, which is, I don't understand how you don't make plates for everything at this point. The dot is the game right now. So it's the dot being a smaller size it's not as visually quick for me to find because it's so small. So like that 6 would come in and I would see it as it's coming in a little bit sooner. Now, this has a lot to do with, because I'm not used to it. When I go to PCC, I use a HoloSun 510C, and it's a 2.5 MOA, and I absolutely freaking love that dot, but it always takes me a couple of sessions, maybe a week, to really lock into that, to understand the size of that dot. The one thing I've always liked about a smaller dot is it's so much more accurate for me. And what I mean by that is, it's not in your vision. Like, you can see a lot more of the A zone once the optic and the red dot actually hit that site, that target or the steel or whatever it is. The other thing is, and especially distance, you can see more of what you're shooting at. The problem is, as you get older, or as I've gotten older, I always talk about myself in these things. As I've gotten older, it's like, oh, is it there? And I feel like my vision is still good. It's just different, right? So anytime you make a change, you have to get used to that change, and it takes a little bit of a time. So again, occluded dots, awesome. They're a tool. They are not supposed to be a permanent fixture on your dot. Some people might disagree, and that's okay. If it works for you, it works for you. But for me personally, if you close one eye and you shoot, that's basically what occluded dot is when it comes to the processing the information. It's not so much when it comes to shooting. Obviously, you're not shooting with one eye closed, but you're not processing the information as fast. And this game is all about speed. All right, guys, if you have any questions, hit me up in those comments, and I'll see you on the range.